We have a lot of urban homesteaders and people just getting started that ask us questions about, okay, this is if you have all this space, that's great. You can grow these cowpeas and these giant squash. These people are limited to a couple grow bags or maybe a raised bed on a balcony. What varieties would you consider? What vegetables, herbs, whatever, would you encourage them to consider?
There's actually a lot you can grow, like even in some different things to consider would be like we have a tiny Tim tomato plant. Any like lettuces or greens do really well in a hydroponic system. You could also do container gardening. I love to grow microgreens, especially in the winter, but you could grow those year round on the counter. I love that they're super good for you and you can have something fresh in 8 to 10 days. So microgreens would be probably one of the quickest, easiest things. But I'd also to recommend for people who don't have a lot of space to try a hydroponic system, because we have several hydroponic systems going, and I harvest the lettuce and bok choy and kale and herbs out of them frequently. And it's a really fun way to have that fresh for us during the winter months.
Welcome to the Mother Earth News and Friends podcast. At Mother Earth News for 50 years and counting, we've been dedicated to conserving the planet's natural resources while helping you conserve your financial resources. In this podcast, we host conversations with experts in the fields of sustainability, homesteading, natural health, and more to share all about how you can live well wherever you are in a way that values both people and our Mother Earth. Today's sponsor is Sow Right Seeds. They are an heirloom seed company that offers fresh, high-quality, open-pollinated seeds. They have a great selection on their website of over 400 varieties, along with a planter's library with tips for growing. I love that they offer a wide variety of seeds for sustainable home gardening. The instructions on the back of their packets have all the information you'll need to get started. Go to Sow Right Seeds, SOWRIGHTSEEDS.com, and use the code MOTHEREARTH10 for 10% off your order today. Hello, welcome to this episode of Mother Earth News and Friends. I'm Josh Wilder, the content director here at Mother Earth News. With me today, I have Darryl and Patty, who own and operate Sow Right Seeds. Both came from families who garden not just as a hobby, but as a way of sustaining themselves. Also with me today, we have Anna Skemp, lead editor of Mother Earth News, who's a mother, a farmer, and a maker at Deep Roots Community Farm in Wisconsin. She raises a variety of livestock, and in the summer, the farm is open to local school kids for educational programming. And her family recently became the next generation to tend the family apple orchard. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. So in Wisconsin here today, we are in the middle of a blizzard and we're having snow thunder, but gardening season is right around the corner. And this is the time of year that everyone gets excited to choose their seeds and start their seeds. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started, how you started a seed company?
We both grew up gardening, and my husband for years, we always had a garden, even the first summer after we were married. And a lot of times we had tomatoes growing in pots outside of our apartment. And then he started trading seeds online on forums where we would get piles and piles of mail and seeds, and then he would fold packets and send them out to, he says, the little old ladies on the internet, but just whoever. He started trading seeds. And it was a way to try new varieties and just see what was out there, but also to keep the ones he wanted. And
if we're honest, I'm just an addict to seeds. I'm one of those crazy people that love seeds and collect seeds, and I have for a long time.
That is true. So it morphed into a business. Yeah. His hobby and passion. And we love the fresh food from the garden. So it was just a natural thing to do for us. It was the next step.
I typically would grow about 50 different varieties of tomatoes every year just to try out and find the ones that I love the most. And of course, save those seeds. And it grew from that experience and our love of gardening and love of being out there in the dirt.
That's wonderful. Well, one of the best rules of business, if you do something you love, that's how to succeed. You just got to find your own niche. And if it's what you're passionate about, you'll do great. Tell me quick before I forget your favorite tomato. There's still time for us all to start tomatoes from seeds. So what if you could just choose? That's not even a fair question. You can
It
say
isn't
like
a
2
fair
or 3.
question. That's like asking which of my children is my favorite.
I know.
Now, I do have one that I really love from last year that I just tried for the first time, and that's called Cherokee Green. So it's related to the Cherokee Purple, but the skin is yellow, and then when you cut it open, the flesh is super green, bright green, and very sweet. Isn't it a good tomato?
Yeah, I was surprised how much I liked it. It's up there in my top 3 favorites, probably.
Yeah.
In our April-May issue, we ran an article called "Is Gardening Worth It Financially?" And I think on a lot of people's minds right now are the prices at the grocery store and supply chain stuff. What advice do you have for people? Is it worth it financially? And if you're just getting started, what's the way to go? What are some crops that are really worth your time to begin with?
That's a great question with many layers, but I think you should start with things that you will actually eat. It's fun to get a bunch of varieties in and plant them, but if your family doesn't like a certain crop, like maybe nobody likes radishes, but they're a great spring crop, maybe that's not something you want to grow. I would start with, for sure, varieties that you know your family will eat and use, and then try some new ones each year after that. And as far as supplies, I think it's one of those things where trial and error, you'll figure out what you, but just add to your collection of seed starting supplies a little every year is reasonable.
Advice I typically give gardeners is grow things that you can't get or that are really expensive at the store.
Yeah.
So asparagus is an example. It's relatively expensive at the store, and it's not hard to grow, and it's perennial, so it comes back year after year. So those crops like that. The other thing is something that's really productive. When you grow radishes, you get a bundle of radishes. There's a very quick crop, and then it's gone, and that's great. But a crop like Swiss chard, one plant is enough to feed us more than we could possibly need all
6,
summer long.
7 months.
Yeah, it's so productive and it's so good and so healthy that so you could focus on crops like Swiss chard that are just that super productive.
At Mother Earth News, we like to talk about the cost of a single packet of seeds. And if you had to go to the grocery store and purchase a bunch of Swiss chard, like your seed cost is basically covered by the time you buy 1 or 2 bunches. There's so much value in growing your own, I think. One thing I love about your company is that you offer all these great vegetable varieties, but you also have cover crops to help your garden succeed. Could you tell us a little bit more about some of the cover crops you think are worthwhile? And in particular, maybe ones for beginner gardeners that aren't going to take over the whole garden or would do well, like in the paths between crops.
It's funny you asked that question because just this morning, Patty and I were out in the garden doing some spring cleanup, and we had planted some daikon driller radishes last fall. Over the winter, they get frozen and they die. But just today, we were raking them back, and you should have seen the holes that they had left behind. They're great. They do what they're advertised to do. They drill down in the soil and break it up and leave these big holes that provide a lot of aeration. Weren't you impressed by what we saw out there this morning?
Yeah. And what was cool is that I knew what they looked like in the fall, but then to see in the spring that where we left rows that had the daikons, then to rake it back, we could see they had started to decompose, but all of those holes were there, these big, nice holes that are helping break up the clay soil and aerate. It was really cool.
Also out there this fall, we had some oats and some rye growing, and I was actually terminating it as well. And everywhere that was growing, the soil was beautiful and dark and looked really healthy and live. Everywhere that didn't have a plant covering it looks a little dead. And that's the real benefit of the cover crops is they keep the soil alive because the microbes need the roots of the plants that are growing to thrive. And so it keeps everything alive and going even in the winter. We offer yellow mustard and of course the daikon radish and some oats and rye. What else do we have? Buckwheat. Clovers. That hairy vetch, another legume that adds nitrogen to the soil as well, pulls it out of the air and puts it in the soil. So that's a great cover crop. The other thing that we've done is we package the cover crops with enough to cover a 4x8 bed. And they're great for raised beds in that way. Typically, you think of cover crops as an agricultural thing. And so they come in 50-pound bags or 10-pound bags. That doesn't really work for a backyard gardener. And we've tried to make those cover crops available for people to use in their raised beds.
I love the crimson clover. Well, a lot of them have little flowers and they're so pretty in the spring before you have to crimp them down. But it just is fun to have that green, beautiful crop. And the crimson clover, you've got these magenta blooms all over. Yeah, it's just a fun sight to see them.
They are beautiful. It's kind of sad to take them down.
It is.
These cover crops are great early sources of food for the pollinators. What else in your offerings are good to consider to plant alongside our vegetables for the pollinators?
I love to always have flowers and herbs that have blossoms, colorful flowers for the pollinators. Are beautiful in the garden, and they keep the bees and the butterflies in the garden. And so that's always something you should have. I would recommend lots of blossoms for pollinators. And I love them. I love the flowers. It's one of my favorite things to grow. I have a flower farm that I grow a lot of flowers in, but then we also mix them in the garden as well. Last year we had a marigold border, and we just had different spots that had flowers in the garden, some beneficial things, companion planting, like we planted sweet alyssum and basil next to our tomatoes.
There's always a little, I wouldn't call it friction, but the zinnias in the vegetable garden always seem to be coming. I'm like, put your flowers back. I need room for my vegetables.
I plant more zinnias than he sometimes wants, but that's okay.
Oh, I love that. That sounds like me and my husband too. Let's do production vegetables. I'm like, what about the pollinators and the beauty and the flowers for the table too? So there's a balance there for sure. That's funny to hear other people do that too.
I will say about the alyssum, we actually had it around the peppers too. It was the best crop of peppers we'd had. And I don't know exactly what the alyssum's doing for the peppers, but it was clear there was a benefit there.
It just helps so you don't have weeds underneath. You have something growing at the base of the pepper, so it's not competing as much with different weeds that would get big.
I think there was more to it, but I don't know exactly what it was, but it definitely was beneficial.
Yeah.
That's fun. Your seeds, are they meant for a particular region of the country? Are you selecting for varieties that thrive no matter where you are?
Yeah, that's true. Our customer base is in the United States. And so we are not regionalized like that. We do try to select varieties that we feel will do well in the North and in the South. It's more as a matter of timing when you plant them. I will admit that there's some of our varieties won't grow in the upper portion of Wisconsin. It would be a real challenge without having something to extend the season. But our philosophy is let's get seeds that will grow well anywhere in the United States.
Today's sponsor again, thank you to Sow Right Seeds. They're an heirloom seed company that offers fresh, high-quality, open-pollinated seeds. They have a great selection on their website of over 400 varieties, along with a planter's library with tips for growing. I love that they offer a wide variety of seeds for sustainable home gardening. The instructions on the back of their packets have all the information you need to get started. Go to sowrightseeds.com, SOWRIGHTSEEDS.com, and use code MOTHEREARTH10 for 10% off your order. Thanks again.
What other criteria do you have when you're selecting seeds? Are you doing open pollinated? Tell me more exactly about what you're carrying.
We only carry heirloom seeds and open pollinated seeds. So we have not added any other hybrid type seeds. We're looking for good heirloom varieties to preserve those great varieties. We don't look for any seeds that are treated. We want them to be untreated, and heirloom open pollinated varieties is the only thing that we've chosen to carry.
We feel strongly about that preserving those varieties that our grandparents and that we grew up growing, we're getting old enough, I guess that counts as heirloom now. We feel really strongly about that. They're great varieties, and many of the hybrids bring in characteristics that are good for the grocery store shelf. Well, that's not really what a gardener's looking for. A gardener's not worried about how long a tomato can last after you pick it. And when you pick a tomato, it's time to eat it. There are some good hybrids out there. I don't mean to completely bash hybrids. There's some that I've grown and loved over the years, but the open pollinated ones we like them because we and our customers can save the seeds and move their harvest forward into the next year as well.
And I feel like there's a growing interest in saving seeds.
Mhm.
Your home gardeners want to save seeds so they can grow crops the following year from the seeds that they purchased once.
I agree. There's definitely a lot of interest right now in seed saving. And I feel like for beginner gardeners in particular, it feels challenging. Like, what steps do I follow? How do I even get started? Are there a couple plants that you would recommend that are like great beginner plants for seed saving?
Tomatoes are pretty easy and they self-pollinate.
And have a ton of seeds.
And they have a good amount of seeds. So that's a pretty easy one. There is some fermentation that is required, but it's not too challenging. If you'd like, I could just describe the process.
That'd be fun. I think it's great for people to hear that it's actually not as hard as it sounds. Like fermentation mostly just happens. Tell us the details.
Yeah, so it's important to pick the best tomatoes on the plant. So I typically will mark the tomato that I'm going to be selecting, or they're fine if I just go out there and find the best one. But I just cut them in half and just squeeze out the gel and the seeds I usually just use a mason jar. And label the mason jar, fill it full of water, not all the way full, about a couple inches of water in it. And then I just loosely put a cap on it and set it aside for 2 or 3 days. And what happens is it ferments, all the gel that's around the seeds breaks down. Mm-hmm. And the seeds and the gel, the good seeds fall to the bottom, and the seeds that are not viable float to the top along with all the gel. And it looks a little nasty, but you just pour that water off and out go the non-viable seeds and the gel, and you're left with the good seeds, and rinse them a few times.
And let them dry out.
Yeah, and then put them on a paper towel and let them dry out. And it's as simple as that. It takes 3 or 4 days and then a little bit of drying time. It is important to dry them thoroughly before you put them in any sort of container, especially if it's plastic. We generally store our seeds that we save in paper.
One of my personal goals this year is I really want to be growing a large amount of dry beans. I grew some this winter. I loved using them for dinners, and I really want to focus on one variety this year, grow a lot of them for eating next winter. Do you have a recommendation for beans based on flavor or vigor?
One of my personal favorites is lima beans, and it's actually amazing the way that one seed you put it in, how much it will produce. Yeah, Fort Hook lima bean is a really big bean, and I don't know if that's why I like it, but it's a great one for doing that, to multiply it up and then use it as a dry bean. And the great thing is you're essentially saving seeds as well. You can reserve a little bit and plant it the next year.
Yeah, last year we saved our black-eyed cowpeas and our pink-eyed cowpeas, and that was really fun too. It was really easy to harvest them because I think tomatoes require a few more steps than other varieties where you can just let them get dry on the vine and then shell them and save them, is what we did for the cowpeas, and that was very easy to do.
Folks should not be intimidated by saving seeds. The plant does all the work, right? It's producing the seed. It's designed by nature to preserve those seeds and make them available for the next year. And so it's just a matter of picking them at the right time. Beans, you want to let the pods get completely dry and brown so the seeds are rattling inside of there. And then you take them off and separate them from the pods, and you got your seed.
So peas and beans are great winter storage crops. Is there anything else on your list that you would like these tomatoes? We want to eat them within minutes of harvest. It's lucky if we make them to dinner, but what about crops that'll store into January? What's on your list for those?
We still have butternut squash that we're harvesting and eating, the Cino squash.
Oh, that one's so good.
Yeah.
I love those.
Yeah. Any of the winter squash, I would say mostly the squash, pumpkins, the beans.
And don't forget the preserving of the food as well. That's the way to really bring the harvest and the freshness into winter, is just putting the food up, either by freezing it or jarring it up.
Enjoy the tromboncino squash as a summer squash as well.
Yes, we did.
That's one new variety that I'm a stubborn old gardener and I don't readily accept new varieties, but man, that one, it's so much. The squash bugs are nothing to it. It's easier to grow even than a zucchini, and you get this wonderful summer squash plus storage squash. I'm a huge fan of that one.
I felt like
Climbs readily.
it was so prolific too. There were so many and they're so big. So I feel like you get a lot of food for the amount of space it takes up in the garden.
It's a big plant though. Let's be honest.
It is
It's
a big
plant.
but and it's funny because somebody gave me one like I don't gosh, it was probably like 6 or 7 years ago. They're like, you've got to try this squash. And I was like, oh, I don't know. That's a little weird. We started growing it. We're like, oh, this is a great squash.
Yeah, it's a super popular seed that we sell for sure. It flies off the shelf. It's a great squash.
It's popular. It's an up and comer for sure.
But there's a lot of easy ways to preserve the harvest as well. So with tomatoes, we make a tomato sauce that we're still eating it from last year's harvest. And man, it is so good. And it's relatively easy to make. What we do is we just take the tomatoes. Sometimes we cut them, sometimes we don't. We just throw them in a big tin pan, put some garlic and some onion in there and a little bit of olive oil, and then cook them really hard in the oven, like at 450 degrees for about an hour. And
we strain the seeds out. Like I'll blend it and strain the seeds. And
then you missed a step. So before you put it in the blender, you pour off the liquid that comes from these tomatoes. And that makes the very best stock. It's essentially the gel that's around the seed, which is where a lot of the flavor is. And so we'll take that liquid that comes off the tomatoes and reduce it down and put it in stock cubes, put it in an ice cube tray and that really brings a strong tomato flavor to any dish you put it in.
Like sauces. Yeah, that is really good too. Yeah.
Okay. So after that step, what's next?
After we take the liquid off the tomatoes, then I'll blend the tomatoes and onions in the blender and strain the seeds out. And then we will can the pasta sauce that's left. And it's so good because it's got this, or sometimes I'll freeze some and use for tomato soup, but I really like to can the tomatoes because I feel like you get that freshness over the next year. And I love to can tomatoes, especially the tomato pasta sauce, to just have, because I feel like you're getting that fresh flavor versus I would rather spend my time canning that than other things in the garden.
Yeah, that's true.
It's always sad when the last jar of that is gone. That and I can't make enough pesto. I've never made it past mid-January. Some year I'm going to finally grow enough basil to get through the winter.
So how do you store your pesto? I'm curious.
I've just done like freezer cubes basically, and I can grab the number that I want and add it to whatever.
That's how we do it, and that is a great way. But I'm always looking for new ways to keep the food. Yeah. Yep.
So we have a lot of urban homesteaders and people just getting started that ask us questions about, okay, this is if you have all this space, that's great. You can grow these cowpeas and these giant squash. These people are limited to a couple grow bags or maybe a raised bed on a balcony. What varieties would you consider? What vegetables, herbs, whatever, would you encourage them to consider?
There's actually a lot you can grow, like even in some different things to consider would be like we have a tiny Tim tomato plant. Any like lettuces or greens do really well in a hydroponic system. You could also do container gardening. I love to grow microgreens, especially in the winter, but you could grow those year round on the counter. I love that they're super good for you and you can have something fresh in 8 to 10 days. So microgreens would be probably one of the quickest, easiest things, but I'd also to recommend for people who don't have a lot of space to try a hydroponic system because we have several hydroponic systems going and I harvest the lettuce and bok choy and kale and herbs out of them frequently. And it's a really fun way to have that fresh for us during the winter months.
And the other thing I would say is look for varieties that have dwarf characteristics. So we offer a sugar and pea, and it gets to be about 2.5 feet tall. It's not the sugar snap or the telephone pole pea, which get We've had telephone pole peas. They're up 6, 7 feet. And thus their name, right? But the sugar hen is a dwarf variety and does great. The other, even zucchinis, we offer a round zucchini, and that plant I'd say is about a quarter of the size of a regular Black Beauty zucchini. And so if you look for the right varieties that will fit the space, you can still enjoy growing and eating the vegetables, but not have to have tons of space. It's also been really surprising to me. We have 10 raised beds in our garden, plus in the ground. But it's amazing how much food you can place in a raised bed because you don't need a row. And if you space your plants appropriately, you can get a lot in there.
Yeah, I love the growing in the raised beds for that reason. I feel like you can do more, put them in pretty close. They do really well. It's just fun and easy to work out of the raised bed. I love that. You're not on the ground as much.
Yeah.
There was something else I was thinking about. Oh, herbs. I love to have fresh herbs to cook with. So I feel like herbs do really well in containers or in a hydroponic system. If you have a full sunny window or a porch, then it's always fun to cook with fresh herbs. It's one of my favorite things about the garden for sure.
Yeah, and the plastic packages at the store, they never last as long as you want them to. They're expensive. And herbs, that's funny. You just read my mind on that. I was just going to say, tell me about herbs. If you could grow, what are 5 or 6 recommendations that you would grow?
Boy, that's hard too. That's like asking what's your favorite tomato.
I love them all for taste, and the ones I use the most. I would say the ones I use the most would be the 5. But I love chives because we have chives coming up. They're the first thing that come up every year, and so we have chives in the spring, summer, fall. I love basil when it's warm outside. Basil I use a ton. I also love thyme and oregano, and then gosh, what would be my top 5th one?
Gotta be cilantro or sage.
I'd say cilantro.
Yeah. The other ones that we've recently been growing a lot of and offering for sale are medicinal herbs. We've got comfrey and mugwort and wormwood and some other ones that have more of a medicinal use.
The chamomiles are really one of my favorite medicinals. You can eat the blossoms and make tea. Plus they're pretty and they bring in the pollinators. They serve so many purposes in the garden. Yeah,
that German chamomile is really quite a showstopper, isn't it? Yeah. And then I don't think a garden's complete without some lavender. We've got the whole bed of lavender is a boundary in the theory that it will deter some pests, but it's really just beautiful.
Yeah, it's a perennial. So we planted it in a kind of on the border too. So critters will smell the lavender, hopefully stay out of the garden. But also it's really pretty to look at as well. Yeah, I forgot about lavender. I love lavender.
You've mentioned asparagus, chives, lavender. What other perennials do you offer? And which of those would you recommend?
For herbs?
Just anything. What perennials?
Oh gosh, we have a lot of the medicinal herbs or perennials. Most of them are. One that I'm loving just because it's so pretty and I love it in flower arrangements, but the bees love it, is blue sage. That's been my favorite one this last year. Let's see, what else? I love the echinacea as well. It's pretty and it's a great medicinal.
We probably better break this up. And so we have a lot of perennial flowers like your black-eyed Susan and coneflower, and just too many to list here. And then many herbs as well. As far as vegetables go, rhubarb, artichoke, asparagus. We're always looking for other perennial vegetables, but there aren't very many, to be honest with you.
Yeah, echinacea is such a great plant to grow. I've been making elderberry syrup all month and popping a little bit of echinacea in the summer, and that's good stuff. And it's beautiful in the garden. It's beautiful in the winter garden. That's one of my favorite plants. It's hard to pick favorites, but that one's up there for sure. How do you source seeds?
So we'd love to grow all of our own seeds, but it's just not physically possible. So take a pumpkin, for example. You need 2 miles of separation between different varieties of pumpkin so you don't get across and the seed doesn't come true. And we use contract with seed production companies in California, Arizona, and a little bit in Texas and in Oregon. And they contract with farmers to grow the seed for us.
Tell me what you're planting this month. When does your first round go in, like the early stuff?
We have a lot in the grow station right now. We have onions, tomatoes, peppers. We just started flowers this morning, so that was fun. And our onions are getting ready to go out in the garden.
They'll go later this week or next week.
That'll be the first thing that's not a perennial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, gosh, we're getting lots started. We have kale and all the cole crops started. We'll transplant tomatoes and peppers in the hoop house when it's warm enough, probably middle of April. And then we'll put other cold crops out in the garden a little bit before that.
The other thing is, if we grow a fall vegetable garden typically, and it's surprising how many vegetables overwinter and come back green. Spinach for sure. That's a no-brainer. And we were out in the cleanup. The kale's all coming back. And that's really the first thing that we harvest out of the garden is this stuff that has overwintered and comes right to life as soon as it's warm enough, even well before the last frost.
That sounds wonderful. I'm just a little too far north, but I'm jealous.
You pile up enough straw, it would make it.
Fresh greens this time of year is so wonderful.
Yeah.
Tastes so much better than anything you could ever buy.
And the spinach even tastes better if it's overwintered. It really does. It's so sweet. Remember that spinach, I haven't picked any this year, but last year we had a great crop of overwintered spinach, and it was just as sweet as it could be.
Whenever I talk to folks who are as involved in the seed community as you are, obviously, like anybody who goes to a seed swap or is involved in a seed company or is trading seeds through the mail, really, they have a passion for it. And I think the donation program you have speaks to that. Can you tell us a little bit about that program and how it got started?
Yeah, absolutely. We started donating seeds just as soon as we started selling seeds, to be honest with you. And our ideal organization is somebody who's growing food to feed people. That's who we're really looking for. And I think we normally send out around 500 boxes of about 100 packets each to different organizations to reduce their costs. If they're growing food to feed people that are in need, we want to do what we can to support them. And it's been a real blessing to us to receive all the feedback from all these groups about the good that they're doing in the world with those seeds. It's what makes my heart happy.
Yeah, it's part of our mission is to give back and do good in the world through our seed donations to nonprofits. And also, we are able to donate a lot of garden produce to 2 local food pantries, and they normally don't get fresh produce. They mostly get boxed and non-perishables. It's really fun to be able to donate fresh produce and also just support organizations they already have a system in place to help people learn skills and grow gardens, and we can fill in that gap of providing the seed to these organizations.
That's great. Yeah, because whenever I think about sustainability, it's not just what you're getting out of or putting into the ground. It's also your community, keeping the qualities that you want to keep around, whether that's through organizations or through specific individuals or gardens. It's sharing, whether it's education or seeds or your time. I think that's really valuable. It's a lot of what we try to do here at Mother Earth News, and be a place where we can connect people like yourself with our audience, or whether it's seeds with folks or information to anybody who's looking for it. So we really appreciate your time today, and it was great to talk to you.
Oh, certainly our pleasure. Thank you for taking time.
Yes, thank you. And I love what you guys do as well. So thank you for that.
This episode was brought to you by Sow Right Seeds. They're an heirloom seed company that offers fresh, high-quality, open-pollinated seeds. Their great selection on their website has over 400 varieties, as well as a planter's library with tips for growing. I love that they offer a wide variety of sustainable home gardening seeds. The instructions on the packets have all of the information you need to get started. Go to sowrightseeds.com, SOWRIGHTSEEDS.com, and use code MOTHEREARTH10 for 10% off your order. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Mother Earth News and Friends. To listen to more podcasts and get connected on our social media, visit www.motherearthnews.com/podcast. You can also email us at podcast@ogdenpubs.com with any questions or suggestions. Our podcast production team includes Kenny Coogan, Alyssa Warner, and myself, Josh Wilder. Music for this episode is the song Hustle by Kevin MacLeod. The Mother Earth News and Friends podcast is a production of Ogden Publications.